After an evening celebrating a birthday, Victoria Pamela Salas Martínez did not return home as planned, and her final phone calls quickly became the most critical clues in a years-long investigation. What truly happened after that promise to come home early? On August 31st, 1994, Consuelo Salas gave birth to her second daughter, Victoria Pamela Salas Martínez, in Mexico City, where she grew up alongside her older sister Janet, her younger brother Victor, and her grandmother Josefina Salas in a modest working-class family, with Salvador San Pedro being the man who took her in and raised her as his own child. From an early age, Victoria Pamela was brought up in an environment that emphasized responsibility and perseverance, values that led her to become aware very early of her role within the family. By 2017, at the age of 23, she was working at a telemarketing company and had become one of the family's main sources of financial support, at a time when the household income was still limited, forcing her to put her education on hold in order to prioritize work. Victoria Pamela shared a room with her grandmother, Josefina, whose serious health condition required special care, prompting the family to constantly strive to maintain stability in their daily lives and to minimize any factors that could cause psychological disruption. In 2015, while attending an entertainment event, Victoria Pamela met Mario Sáenz, and the two later began seeing each other regularly. Mario was about 6 years older than her, and by 2017 was 29 years old, the father of a 10-year-old boy, and active in the professional skateboarding scene. He had pursued the sport from a very young age and gradually built a reputation within the skateboarding community in Mexico City, viewing it as both his primary source of income and his chosen career path.
Mi nombre es Mario Sáenz, soy de la Ciudad de México. Mi familia le hubiera gustado que yo hubiera estudiado una carrera normal, pero pues a mí me gusta la patineta.
During that period, Mario expressed ambitions of competing in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and with backing from sponsors, he maintained a stable income while also investing in business by opening skate shops that specialized in skateboarding equipment. His relationship with Victoria Pamela continued, and by early 2017 it had grown closer. According to Consuelo, her daughter frequently stayed at Mario's home on weekends, sharing daily life with him and his son. However, behind the appearance of stability, Victoria Pamela gradually realized that the relationship did not give her a sense of safety or a clear future, and she once confided in her mother, in an emotional state, that it was merely a complicated and tangled relationship, unlikely to lead to a lasting outcome. Those close to them later said the relationship showed many signs of instability, as Mario frequently displayed jealousy and controlling tendencies, causing their romance to repeatedly fall into a cycle of breaking up and getting back together. Against that backdrop, on Thursday, August 31st, 2017, Victoria Pamela turned 23. That morning, Consuelo woke her daughter at 7 a.m. to wish her a happy birthday, after which Victoria Pamela prepared for work as usual, putting on makeup, choosing an appropriate outfit, and leaving the house with the mindset that it was a special day. Throughout the morning and early afternoon, she stayed in touch with her mother via text messages, sharing that her co-workers had given her 2 chocolate cakes and that she planned to return home in the evening to have dinner with her family. However, by the end of the day, Victoria Pamela informed her mother that she would be home later than expected because Mario had come to pick her up from the office so they could celebrate her birthday together at a nearby location. The following morning, when Victoria Pamela did not return home overnight, Consuelo proactively contacted her daughter and was told that she had the day off work, was in Cocoyoc, in the state of Morelos, with Mario, and would soon return to Mexico City. At around 3 p.m. the same day, Salvador called his daughter, and Victoria Pamela repeated the same information, confirming that she was still with Mario and would be back shortly. That was the last contact the family ever had with her. As the afternoon passed with no further news, anxiety began to envelop the entire family, and subsequent calls and messages received no response. That night, and throughout the following Saturday, Victoria Pamela still did not appear, while all efforts by the family to obtain information led nowhere. At around 8 p.m. that evening, 2 police officers arrived at the house and asked to speak with Victoria Pamela's parents regarding her situation. Faced with Consuelo's urgent questions about where her daughter was and whether she was safe, the officers provided no specific details and only instructed her to go immediately to the Mexico City Attorney General's office in the Tlalpan area, bringing her identification documents. During this brief exchange, they also asked whether Consuelo knew Mario Sáenz and requested that she provide any information related to him, stating that authorities were urgently trying to determine his whereabouts. In a state of confusion and deep anxiety, Consuelo immediately went to pick up her husband from his workplace so they could go together to the Mexico City Attorney General's office in the Tlalpan area, where they arrived at around 10 p.m. According to Consuelo's later account, the couple was initially told that their daughter had been detained in connection with a cosmetic theft incident. However, this information was quickly confirmed to be a mistake, as another woman with the same name was being held at the same facility for that matter. Once the identity was rechecked accurately, authorities informed the family that Victoria Pamela had been involved in a serious tragedy and showed no signs of survival. Salvador was the one asked to carry out the victim identification, while staff advised Consuelo not to confront the situation directly due to the high risk of severe psychological trauma. After the identification was completed, Consuelo collapsed emotionally. The question remains what truly happened to Victoria Pamela from her last contact with her family until the night of September 2nd, when they were informed of her tragic passing. Although multiple interpretations exist, the initial information based on official investigative findings directed attention toward Mario, as witnesses confirmed that he was the last person seen with Victoria Pamela, according to the reconstructed timeline of the victim's final hours. On the evening of Friday, September 1st, after returning from Cocoyoc in the state of Morelos, Victoria Pamela and Mario went together to the Novo Coapa Hotel, located in the Tlalpan area of Mexico City, where they rented Villa Room number 20. There, the two ordered drinks and dinner, and later contacted the front desk to report a technical issue related to the Wi-Fi connection, prompting a hotel employee to come up to the room and attempt to restore the service across several different mobile devices. The next contact between the hotel and the occupants of Villa Room 20 occurred at around 5:30 a.m. on Saturday, September 2nd, when a man identified as Mario appeared at the front desk and stated that he would be leaving the hotel, while Victoria Pamela would remain for a while longer. When it came time for checkout, housekeeping staff knocked on the door but received no response, prompting them to open the room to check, where they discovered a serious abnormal situation inside and immediately notified authorities. When law enforcement arrived at the scene, Victoria Pamela was found in the bathroom with no signs of survival, with hot water still running and overflowing onto the floor. Forensic examination determined that the victim's body showed multiple injuries consistent with strong impact and a severe injury to the neck area. identified as the direct cause of her passing. While her skin had been severely affected by prolonged exposure to high-temperature water. One day after the family received news of the tragedy, a farewell ceremony for Victoria Pamela was held at the Divina Infantina Chapel, located in the Tlalpan area, attended by relatives, friends, and those who had known her. The service unfolded in a heavy atmosphere, as the emptiness Victoria Pamela left behind caused many to openly express their pain and indignation over the sudden loss of a young woman who had been striving to build a future for her family. From the very early stages of the investigation, Mario had been considered the primary person of interest by authorities, and for that reason. When he appeared at the funeral on Sunday, tension immediately filled the space. Mario stated that he had come to pay his respects and brought along several documents intended to assert his innocence amid the growing suspicions directed at him. In response to his presence, Victoria Pamela's family contacted law enforcement, leading to a chaotic situation at the scene, during which Mario was involved in a physical confrontation with officers on duty and was subsequently taken to headquarters for questioning. On September 4th, during the question and answer portion of a press conference, the Mexico City Attorney General publicly characterized the case involving Victoria Pamela as a serious instance of violence against women, stating that the victim's partner was being questioned at the Attorney General's office and that witnesses had confirmed the two were seen together at the hotel where Victoria Pamela was found, with no signs of survival. However, 2 days later, Mario was allowed to leave custody, as the initial detention was determined to be related to his confrontation with security personnel at the funeral, rather than directly tied to the case under investigation. Alongside this explanation, several local media outlets reported that Mario had presented documents intended to prove he was not present at the Novo Coapa Hotel during the time frame identified as when the incident occurred. Specifically, Mario submitted a report issued by a public authority documenting a traffic incident on the night of September 1st into the early hours of September 2nd, when his vehicle was damaged due to deteriorated road conditions. According to Mario's account, following this incident, he contacted his insurance company and went to the Attorney General's office to file a complaint requesting that city authorities take responsibility for the damage. He also stated that during that period, he was with his son and several acquaintances, helping address flooding at his home, and that the vehicle incident happened while he went out to buy food for everyone. Despite repeatedly asserting that he had no involvement in Victoria Pamela's tragedy, after his release, Mario disappeared from the authorities' oversight and failed to appear in response to official requests, leading him to be regarded as someone evading the investigative process. Approximately 1 month after the tragedy that claimed Victoria Pamela's life, her parents publicly demanded justice, fully aware that they were embarking on a long and difficult journey. According to social organizations in Mexico that support families of victims of violence against women, efforts to clarify the case faced numerous obstacles that significantly slowed progress, including the severe impact of the earthquake that struck on September 19, 2017, affecting Mexico City and several neighboring states such as Puebla, Morelos, the state of Mexico, and Oaxaca, forcing many administrative and investigative activities to be temporarily suspended. Although the case file had been opened and verification efforts continued, it was not until October that a control judge of the Mexico City Supreme Court of Justice, Christian Ricardo Franco Reyes, issued an arrest warrant for Mario, arguing that the documents presented as his alibi could not be verified, and that data collected by the Mexico City Attorney General's office identified him as the primary suspect in the case. According to reports published by local media, including El Universal, the camera system at the Attorney General's office, where Mario claimed to have been present at a critical time, did not record his presence at the facility. At the same time, authorities announced that they had requested Interpol to issue an international alert, out of concern that Mario might have left Mexico or was no longer within the country's territory. According to information released by the Attorney General and widely reported by multiple media outlets in Mexico, the investigative file revealed numerous elements unfavorable to Mario. In addition to data concerning Victoria Pamela's final communications and witness statements confirming that he was with her at the hotel, forensic analysis recorded tissue samples found beneath Victoria Pamela's fingernails that were consistent with Mario's DNA profile. Furthermore, the case file included information indicating that security camera systems had captured images of Mario entering and leaving the hotel where the incident occurred, along with multiple additional statements reinforcing suspicions directed toward a man who had since slipped out of the authorities' control. Investigators interviewed family members and individuals close to Victoria Pamela and concluded that jealousy and controlling tendencies within the relationship may have been triggering factors behind the tragedy. An assessment further supported by data extracted from the victim's mobile phone. Meanwhile, public opinion quickly became divided. One side believed Mario was not involved and argued that the accusations were fabricated, while the other maintained that he should be held responsible for the serious incident that occurred. Even before Mario was formally charged and the case brought to trial, debate spread widely across social media platforms, where campaigns demanding justice for Victoria Pamela appeared alongside messages defending Mario, turning the online space into a tense battleground of public opinion, while Victoria Pamela's family continued to demand that the investigation be carried out thoroughly and that justice be enforced through the appropriate authorities. She and her loved ones were forced to endure another form of harm, stemming from online attacks launched by a segment of individuals supporting Mario. Across social media platforms, numerous defamatory claims were widely circulated, alleging that Victoria Pamela was involved with harmful substances, engaged in negative behavior, or was experiencing personal mental struggles, despite the absence of any official documentation to support such assertions. In response to this wave of attacks, her family, alongside organizations advocating for women's rights, publicly rejected all of these accusations, emphasizing that their position was grounded in legal records and the professional conclusions of the authorities. According to forensic documentation, no evidence related to the use of illicit substances was found in Victoria Pamela's body, and although alcohol was detected, the level was not sufficient to significantly impair her awareness or ability to react. Alongside efforts to defend their daughter's dignity, the family also filed complaints against the Mexico City authorities for allowing the primary suspect to leave official supervision after a brief period of detention, expressing concern that this lack of strict oversight could jeopardize the full clarification of the case and inadvertently create the impression of an individual standing outside legal accountability. Over time, Victoria Pamela's family began pointing out multiple contradictions that emerged during efforts to clarify the case, particularly regarding changes in the initial statements made by the owner of the hotel where the incident occurred. Specifically, after previously asserting that the security camera system had captured images of Mario at the scene, the owner later claimed that the surveillance equipment was not functioning at that exact time, rendering the information inconsistent, Consuelo and Salvador also publicly directed questions toward Mario, expressing suspicion that if he were truly uninvolved, he would have come forward to help the family clarify the truth and stand alongside them in the pursuit of justice for Victoria Pamela. Faced with the risk of the case gradually slipping into silence, her parents proactively turned to the media as a way to bring the story into the light and prevent their daughter from being forgotten. As time passed, the pain from Victoria Pamela's sudden loss did not fade. Instead, it grew heavier as the family confronted a lack of answers and narratives that shifted blame back onto the victim, a reality that often arises in cases involving women. Even so, amid prolonged grief and pressure, Consuelo and Salvador remained steadfast, continuing their search for the truth through various means, including participating in public actions aimed at drawing social attention in a city where movements opposing violence against women remain frequent. One of the most notable public actions took place on November 10, 2017, when Victoria Pamela's relatives, friends, and social activists gathered in front of the Mexico City Attorney General's office to demand accountability for her passing. There, they raised banners and called on authorities to take action promptly, before the group, led at its center by the victim's family, marched toward the Hemiciclo de Juarez to draw public attention. By mid-November, the National Observatory on Severe Violence Against Women, through its coordinator Maria de la Luz Estrada, officially stepped in to support the Salas family, alongside attorneys Nayeli Garrido and Catherine Mendoza from the organization Justicia Pro Persona. On December 15th, this group submitted a formal request calling for the case to be transferred to the Specialized Unit for Severe Violence Against Women, arguing that the file met most of the criteria required for such classification and noting that the Attorney General herself had previously made public statements aligned with this assessment. However, at that time, the case continued to be handled under a general framework, with the file remaining at the Tlalpan branch of the Attorney General's office, raising concerns about the risk of delays in fully clarifying responsibility. The coordinator of the National Observatory on Severe Violence Against Women argued that the case involving Victoria Pamela should be classified under the legal framework for gender-based violence cases, based on criteria established by law, including evidence of serious harm to the victim, the presence of abusive elements, and the aggravating factor that the victim and the suspect were in a romantic relationship. According to statistics released by the observatory, misclassification of similar cases is fairly common, as between 2014 and 2017, fewer than one-third of severe violence cases against women were investigated under the appropriate legal framework. Against this backdrop, on January 29, 2018, Mario unexpectedly reappeared through a video posted on the YouTube channel Mafian TV, in which he presented his own version of events and claimed that the media had misrepresented his role in the case. In the video released afterward, Mario reiterated the arguments surrounding the alibi evidence that he said he had previously presented to authorities before slipping out of the scope of the investigation, once again maintaining that he had no involvement in the case that was still being examined.
Imagine waking up on a Sunday and you're a murderer. I can't believe it. I arrived, for example, at a wake, and from there I was implicated. I was pointed out. I was arrested by the Public Security Secretariat. Even though I hadn't committed any crime whatsoever, they took me to a public prosecutor's office where I presented all the evidence. I said and showed all the evidence that I hadn't been with Victoria. I didn't even know what had happened. Later I found out that she had been murdered in a hotel where they said I had entered. I never entered. Initially, some media outlets said that there were cameras. How I wish there had been cameras. They erased the evidence and they did it to frame me. It's impossible that, in addition to those cameras, there are more than 10 cameras around the hotel. Why have they never presented any camera footage to the media?
In his self-defense video, Mario claimed that data from the hotel's security camera system had been deleted and questioned why, despite the area being surrounded by multiple surveillance devices. No footage had been released. He stated that on August 31st he had organized a birthday celebration for Victoria Pamela together with her friends, and that on September 1st the two were still together until after 8:30 p.m. before Victoria Pamela left with a couple identified as Arlette Duarte and Fernando Fragoso. While he did not go with them, Mario asserted that from that moment on, he had no further contact with Victoria Pamela and emphasized that he had never been present at the hotel where the serious incident later occurred.
Yo estuve con Victoria, estuvimos en el Metro División del Norte, donde, bueno, seguimos tomando y seguimos festejando su cumpleaños, ya que su cumpleaños fue realmente el día 31, donde no pasó nada, estuvimos con todos sus amigos, y el día primero estuvimos ahí en el Metro División, donde a las 8 de la noche, ella se subió al carro de Arlette Duarte, y de Fernando Fragoso, y ellos se fueron, según esto, a festejar su cumpleaños, y yo no supe nada más de ella. De ahí yo me fui con mi hijo, con Luis y con Santiago, que les consta que yo me despedí de Victoria.
Mario also presented statements from several acquaintances to reinforce his alibi, including testimony from one person who claimed that he was with her during the period identified as the time when the incident allegedly occurred, thereby asserting that he was not present at the location in question.
Jamás estuve con Victoria, yo estoy diciendo toda la verdad, tengo las pruebas de donde estuve, no es posible que una procuraduría me está defendiendo, porque yo estuve realmente en un ministerio público esa noche, y otra procuraduría me está atacando, entonces que se pongan de acuerdo. Yo creo que en este momento, este caso chocó con pared, y es una injusticia lo que están cometiendo.
At the same time, Mario stated that he would voluntarily present himself to the authorities, insisting that he had no involvement in the case and rejecting claims that he was evading the investigative process.
Tendré que poner mi vida en manos de un juez que ni siquiera debería de hacerlo, porque yo no tengo necesidad de estar viviendo esto. Ya destruyeron mi carrera, han destruido a mi familia.
Alongside Mario's self-defense video, the case saw another development before the end of January 2018, when Consuelo sent an open letter to Attorney General Edmundo Porfirio Garrido Osorio, dated January 31st, 2018, requesting information on the status of the investigation. In the letter, she stated that nearly 5 months had passed since the incident occurred, and yet the case file still lacked any conclusion. And for that reason, she called for an urgent meeting with the authorities to clarify the progress of the investigation and the responsibilities involved.
Porque yo voy a seguir en esa gran lucha. Yo le exijo a las autoridades justicia para mi hija Victoria Pamela.
Immediately after receiving Consuelo's request, the Mexico City Attorney General arranged a meeting with Victoria Pamela's family and their legal advisors. During this meeting, he committed to transferring the case file to the specialized investigative unit responsible for handling cases of severe violence against women, in order to apply more appropriate investigative procedures. At the same time, the Attorney General agreed to establish a mechanism for ongoing coordination with the family and supporting organizations to monitor the progress of the case, with the top priority being to strengthen efforts to identify and bring the responsible party before the law. Maria de la Luz, a representative of the Observatory on Severe Violence Against Women, argued that Mario's ability to leave the oversight of authorities stemmed from shortcomings in the initial handling of the case by the capital's justice system. From the perspective of social organizations working in this field, cases involving the deaths of women in contexts of violence must be approached under the appropriate legal framework from the outset. as misclassification can create serious gaps that hinder the pursuit of accountability. In a context where the rate of similar cases left unresolved remains high. On September 7, 2017, just days after the events involving Victoria Pamela, multiple civil organizations proposed activating the Gender Violence Alert Mechanism in Mexico City to push for urgent measures to protect women. However, this proposal was not approved. As Interior Secretary Patricia Mercado stated that conditions in the capital had not reached the threshold required to implement such a mechanism, and that existing policies were considered sufficient to address the issue. Nearly 19 months after the events involving Victoria Pamela, and more than a year after her family's meeting with the Attorney General, Mario voluntarily presented himself to authorities in Mexico City. The surrender took place on March 30, 2019, at a commercial facility in the southern part of the city, in the presence of his legal counsel. Prior to turning himself in, Mario posted a video announcing his intention to cooperate with authorities, while continuing to insist that he had no involvement in the case and asserting that the entire file built against him was the result of a lack of objectivity within the justice system.
I'm going to meet with the authorities to finalize the arrest warrant they issued against me. The warrant is based on nothing but lies, and they already have too much evidence against it. It's all been a show, fabricated by the Mexico City Attorney General's office. I'm only appearing because they've accepted the evidence I presented. DNA tests have been done, and they even came back negative. So, my innocence now needs to be proven.
During the preliminary hearing held on Sunday the 31st, representatives of the Attorney General's office presented accusations alleging that Mario was directly involved in the sequence of actions that led to Victoria Pamela's passing. Based on initial investigative findings, the defense countered these claims, arguing that the hotel room where the incident was discovered contained no physical traces or technical evidence proving the defendant's presence. After reviewing arguments from both sides, the judge ordered Mario to be held under the legal framework applicable to cases of severe violence against women with aggravating circumstances, and he was transferred to the Reclusorio Sur detention facility. That same day, the judge set April 4th as the date to determine whether the case would proceed to formal trial. Victoria Pamela's parents and several relatives were present at the Mexico City Supreme Court of Justice to follow the proceedings, and upon leaving the building, Consuelo stated that her family would continue pursuing justice to the very end.
We continue the fight, and we're going for more, for justice.
On April 4th, the hearing proceeded as scheduled, with Consuelo and Mario attending from separate rooms and observing one another through a remote connection system. The session lasted several hours, during which Consuelo was offered the option to pause the proceedings, but she chose to continue. At the end of the day, the judge ruled to formally charge Mario and set a 2-month period to complete the supplemental investigation phase and gather the necessary evidence. Victoria Pamela's family was present at the Mexico City Supreme Court of Justice to follow the developments and stated that they left the courtroom with the belief that the legal process was moving in the right direction, even though their daughter's loss could never be undone. Throughout the legal proceedings, which lasted approximately 40 days, Mario's defense team consistently denied the accusations and sought to challenge the documents and evidence presented by the Mexico City prosecutor's office. Before the panel of judges entered deliberations, on February 4th, 2022, Mario once again stated that he had no involvement in the case. After reviewing the entire file, by the end of the trial held on Friday of that same week, 2 of the 3 judges on the panel concluded that Mario Sáenz Zambrano bore criminal responsibility for the case involving Victoria Pamela Salas Martínez. The trial was conducted at the Mexico City Criminal Justice Center, located within the Reclusorio Sur detention complex. At the close of the proceedings, the court scheduled a subsequent hearing for February 11th to deliver sentencing, in accordance with the Mexico City Criminal Code, which establishes a penalty range of 35 to 70 years in prison for this type of case. In the final ruling, the panel sentenced Mario to 45 years in prison and ordered him to pay financial compensation in the amount of 485,000 pesos, equivalent to more than $23,000. Following the verdict, reactions from Victoria Pamela's family and Mario's family were made public through the media, revealing sharply opposing perspectives on the outcome of the trial and reflecting the lasting consequences the case had left on both families since the events first unfolded.
For us as a family, it's a great satisfaction, a great achievement, because finally, our daughter can rest in peace. Justice hasn't been served, and that's why the deceased won't be able to rest. And you know what? All of this started with a botched investigation.
Consuelo stated that although the verdict could never make up for her family's loss, it was at least a step toward preventing similar outcomes from occurring in the future. On the other hand, Katia Zambrano Vega, Mario's mother, publicly expressed the view that her son had received a sentence that she believed did not correspond to the truth. While affirming that the family would continue pursuing legal avenues to challenge the ruling, she explained that the defense was preparing an appeal and considering taking the case to higher courts, arguing that the evidence used during the proceedings was insufficient to prove Mario's presence at the location where the incident occurred. From Mario's family's perspective, they maintain that both the investigation and the trial still contain aspects that require further review, and that the search for the ultimate truth in the case does not end with the initial verdict. After the sentence was handed down, Mario's family continued to voice their opposition through public statements, arguing that the ruling did not reflect the true nature of the case, and citing what they considered the absence of decisive elements. At the same time, the defense formally filed an appeal, taking the case to higher levels of judicial review in accordance with the law. However, after the case file and appellate arguments were reviewed, on December 1st, 2022, the 45-year prison sentence imposed on Mario was upheld by the competent authority, bringing the main judicial phase of the case to a close and establishing the final legal validity of the verdict. Once the case concluded from a legal standpoint, each member of Victoria Pamela's family was left to confront its long-term consequences in their own way. Consuelo continued to pursue remaining legal matters while also trying to protect her mother, Josefina's mental well-being by limiting her exposure to information that could cause distress. Salvador stated that his daily life had changed profoundly since Victoria Pamela was no longer present in the family's familiar routines. Meanwhile, her siblings chose different ways to preserve her memory and cope with the void left by her passing. Even as time has passed and the verdict has been finalized, for those who loved her, the case remains an indelible turning point, inseparable from the deep and lasting changes it brought to their lives.
We've been crying every day for over a month now, because, as my wife says, days will pass, years will pass. Psychologists will come and go with us, but what they left us here will never be forgotten.
As I close this story, I think what lingers is not just a case file, but a bitter reminder of the quiet fractures that can exist within relationships that seem familiar. and the devastating price an innocent person can sometimes be forced to pay. Justice, even when it arrives late, was something Victoria Pamela's family pursued with unwavering determination, and their journey shows that refusing to stay silent, refusing to give up, can create change. Thank you for staying with me and listening to today's story as part of this true crime documentary journey. If you have any thoughts or emotions, please leave a comment below as a way to honor the victim. Don't forget to share the video, press like, and subscribe to the channel to continue with me in the stories ahead. I say goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next episode.